Hello, Uke Bandits. We're going to be looking at Sweet Caroline today, and for this song we've got a really cool intro riff, so I'll be explaining how to read that tablature and how to play it. Also some rhythmic dynamics, what does that mean, and how to apply that to this song, and trying to make this song sound as good and interesting as possible. So what we've got here to start with, we've got this really cool little riff, which I'm going to play just so that you can hear it to start with. And then we're into the song. If you know the song, you'll know the riff. Listen to it, you'll hear it. It's a really cool little part, played on some brass instruments. So we've got that part that we're going to learn to start with, and then we'll look at the rhythm part. So really cool song, a very good sing-along. Now when we look at this intro riff here, we've got it in a form called tablature, which some of you may be familiar to. I'll just go over it in a little bit more detail just to start off with. So we've got the 4 lines which represent the 4 strings of the ukulele, and the A string is nearest the floor, and the G string is nearest your head, and it goes A, E, C, G from the floor upwards. If you climb the ladder, 1, 2, 3, 4 up towards your head, A, E, C, G. So that gives us our strings. So strings and lines are across here, and then we've got the frets. The frets are represented by the numbers. Now 0 means open, so that means if we play open on the first string, the A string, 0 would be there. That's a 0, so you just literally pluck it, no frets involved. And these rest of these numbers you can see here, we've got lots of 2s and 1s and 3s and 2s and 1s and 3s and 2s and 3s, and right at the end there's a 7 and a 5. Let's ignore that one for a minute, but you can see already we've got we've got 0, 1, 2, 3 covered in the first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 odd bars there. So you've got your first 2, 3 fingers mainly going to do most of the work. So what you want to do is lay your first finger across the first fret, second across the second, third across the third, a little across the fourth. Notice that we're not going to be using that 4th fret, and we're not going to be using the 4th fret at all, but that's how you would lay your finger across. Now the reason why we want to do that is because we want to be able to play all these notes fluently together without moving our hand. The hand obviously is a bigger movement, and you don't want to be looking down and trying to work out where you're putting your fingers with. So for example, if I put my first finger on the 3rd fret and I want to move to the first, you know, the habit would be you look down to check that you're getting to the 1st fret, whereas if you laying your fingers flat across those first 4 frets, then I can feel where that bump is. I know my fingers on the 3rd, I know my first finger's on the 1st, I know my 3rd finger's on the 3rd, so it's a question of just putting it down. I know where they are, I don't have to check and look down and guess where that is if I'm reading the tablature. So really important, this is an important tip when you're playing any riffs or patterns, to try and get your fingers in the position of the pattern to start with. You don't have to hold them down on the strings or on the frets, you just need to have them hovering above and in a position. So the thumb's on the back, 1, 2, 3, 4, that will go across. So when I was playing that first riff, you notice we've got 2nd fret there on the 3rd string, which is the C string. So the 2 is on the C string, 2 means the 2nd fret, 1st fret, 2nd fret, move it there. And then we've got that 0 on the E, open, and then the 1 on the E string, which is the 1st fret. So 2nd fret, open on the E, 1st fret, and then that's repeated twice. And then it plays the open on the 2nd string back to the 2nd fret on the C. So we just look at that first 2 little phrases here. So I'm actually at the moment, if I can highlight it, well not really, so I won't bother, but across here to here. So we're going to go from 201 to 0102, just that little bit to start with. So 2, 2nd fret. So you can see it here on my, if you look at my little rhythm cam in the bottom right hand corner here. Okay, you can see the white nut here as well, so that shows you that's the 2nd fret. And then I play that again. Now get used to that. Dun, 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 dun. You want to get the feel of it, get that phrase right, because those next few phrases are basically the same rhythmic pattern. Now in terms of what you're going to do with the right hand, if you're not sure what to use, thumb, finger, 2 fingers, combination, whatever you decide, you've got to pick something that's comfortable, what feels natural to start with. I tend to mix it up depending on the effect or the sound that I want to get out of the instrument. So if I want a nice warm sound, then I'd use the thumb because it's warmer. If I want it a bit more, get a bit more volume, might pluck it, and also it's got a bit more snap to it. Also, if it's quite intricate, quite quick, then I may use 2 fingers, and that enable me to play it a little bit more fluently without having to move my finger up and down. So I would suggest maybe the thumb or the first finger to start with, and whatever you feel most natural with, go with that to start with. You want to focus on the pattern and getting it to sound right, not worry too much about that right hand to start with. So we've done our phrase 201, 201, 02, and now all we do is repeat the 102 again. So the 1 on the E, the open on the E, and then back on the C string on the 2nd fret. So 201, 201, 02, 102. Now obviously we're just concentrating on knowing those fret numbers, learning those fret numbers and getting familiar to them. They are notes. So we've got a D note there, we've got an E note there, and we've got an F note. So it would be D, E, F, D, E, F, E, D, F, E, D. That would be the note if you want to learn the notes. It's not really important to start with, just get used to the phrase. So I'm not going to be calling out the notes, just those fret numbers for the moment. And then the next section, we're going to be using the 1st and the 3rd finger on that 2nd string, which is the E string. So we're on the E string, and we're going to be playing 1st fret and then 3rd fret. So notice I use the 1st finger and the 3rd finger, and then it's the open on the 1st string, the A string. Now you notice this pattern is exactly the same as the first pattern, it's just on different strings. So 1, 3, open. It's a rhythmic pattern, it's the same rhythmic pattern. 1, 3, open. 1, 3, open, 3, 1. So you're going to then just move it back. So very slowly we've got that. And then it repeats 0, 3, 1 again. It's like 3 blind mice. 3 blind mice. 3 blind mice. Okay, let's stop that. So we could start from the beginning, and I'm just going to go up to that point because it changes one more time and it goes into the last part. So I'm going to go from the beginning very slowly. So I'm on that C string, 2, open, 1 on the E string, 2, open, 1, open on the E string, back to 2 on the C string, 1 on the E string, open on the E string, 2. Then I'm going to move to the next part. So once you've done that a few times, you feel like you're getting that, starts to sound musical, then go to the next part. So it's 1, 3, open on the A string, and on the E string. And then that's the next part. Hopefully you can see that. You can pause it. You can also slow down the video. It goes a little cog at the back, and you can slow it down if you need to slow it down any more than that. But if you're reading it right and you've got it right, just practice it very slowly. Get your fingers familiar to it. If you crack this riff, it will make it easier to crack other riffs in other songs and other patterns, because your fingers will be more accustomed to playing the individual strings and the scalier positions, if you like. So let's look at the last line. So we're looking at this part now, the 0, 2, 3. So it starts off very similar. So open, 2, 3, and I'm using my 1st and 2nd finger, not my 2nd and 3rd finger, which you can do, it's fine. And the reason I'm doing that is because I'm setting myself up for the last move, which is moving to the 7, which is a dot. So if you look at the dot, so you're looking on my ukulele, it might be different yours, but it's probably the same. You're looking at that 2nd dot and then the 1st dot, which is on the 5. So 0, 2, 3, 2, 7. So I've set myself up because I'm not playing the 1 anymore. I don't need to be there. So I'm using my 1st and 2nd finger. Remember what I said, if you're playing the 1, 2, 3, you won't want them there. I'm not playing the what. You can see there's no 1s after that. So I'm moving my finger up, and it makes everything economical. That's kind of the word, really. So that last section from here, this is where we are. So we're going to go 0, 2, 3, 0, 2, 3, 2, 7, 5. Now I'm using my 3rd finger and then my 1st finger, because then I can put the 3rd finger on and the 1st finger is naturally in the right place. But if you feel more comfortable using 1 finger, That's absolutely fine. You don't feel like you've got to do it exactly the way I've got it. If you feel like one finger, doing it one finger, like for the whole of that section, that's fine. At the end of the day, if it was a quick phrase and it was quite an intricate pattern, you'd need to use the other fingers to play it fluent. You just couldn't do it one finger. So it's a good habit to use all your fingers. But because it's a slow phrase, and if it's a slow phrase, you can accentuate with the stronger finger. So if you're using the first finger, you can slide it up. You know, you could actually, I'm over the top now. You can do a bit of vibrato. You know, you can accentuate that note using the stronger finger, or shift up using that first finger and slide. And you know, if you really wanted to be fancy with it, you could do that. But if you want a straight note and just want to make it sound in time, and also I'm more used to doing that. You know, as when I do the first finger, it feels a bit weird actually, me using the third. It's more natural me using those two fingers because it's more economical. So ideally that's what you want to do, but if you're struggling with that and it takes you a while, then you know, you can cheat a little bit on that phrase, but I wouldn't cheat on the first bit because that is kind of important to get it fluent and to get it quick enough. You need to really better use the right fingers. Okay, so then we're into the rhythm part. So this is the second section of the lesson. Now the rhythm part, we're going to use rhythmic dynamics. So what dynamics are just where you can accent the beat, where you can make it sound interesting using volume, like louder and softer. So dynamics are what we use in music to make it come alive, really make it feel like a piece of music, rather than playing it all at one level and very straight the rhythm all the way through. If we make some of the rhythms pop out by playing it slightly louder, some bit softer, and muting and stopping notes, and just add in some sort of dynamic to the rhythm, then it makes it sound more interesting, more alive. And in this case, we want to make it sound like the actual song. So if you listen to the song, there's this C chord at the beginning, and it goes dun 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 dun. So we've got this. Now you see what I'm doing with my right hand. I'm muting, I'm turning my right hand. There's a little bit of swing to this, but we're not worried about the swing because we just got up. So that's one way of muting the chord. Now I'm doing that. I'm turning my palm and I'm muting. Now, I'll be honest with you, I find that a little bit awkward to do it that way. You can do it there. And it's quite good when you're putting that down and adding a percussive rhythm and turning the wrist. But when you're just solely muting it and you're not hitting it, twisting like that, it's, yeah, you can do it that way, but I've got a way that I prefer doing that you can have a go at. And feel free to try both of these ideas, and you may find one's easier than the other. That's fine, but you should always really, when you're practicing any technique or any dynamics, is look at all the different ways that you can approach it and pick what you feel most comfortable with and then develop that. And also don't be afraid to have a go at other ways of playing it as well. And you never know, you might find that if you work on some sort of technique that you found difficult to start with, it will suddenly become a lot easier to play, and you'll start putting it in the other songs that you've been learning. So when we've got songs like this that jump, I've got this jumpy rhythm in it. We've got that lovely jump sort of. That basically what we're doing is we're playing a note and then muting it out. We call it staccato, when you play a note and it just stops instantly without ringing. So that's a normal strum. And if we play it staccato, we've got, which is a dynamic technique that we're using there. So what we're going to look at doing is approaching it in two different ways. So we're going to use, I'm going to use, you can see it in my my rhythm cam. Actually, it's a really good camera for this, with the C chord. I have these fingers above the note and then I rest them. So I play the note. Now that means my rhythm hand is freed up to just play the normal rhythm I play. Now I can play it a lot quicker, a lot more fluently, because I don't have to do quite an exaggerated movement with the wrist. Which, like I said, has its purpose, especially if you're doing little muting techniques and you want an effect where you hit the strings at the same time and it's muted, you kind of need that technique. But I don't know what the shoulder thing. That's all part of it. Yeah, you got to loosen up these shoulders. That really helps. So the idea really with the rhythm with the right hand, the left hand even, with the right hand's just going to be playing normal strums. The left hand is going to be using these other spare fingers to mute the notes out. Now this may take a little bit of practice, but practice it, because if you're playing a normal song in C, F and G, it can add that very jumpy feel. We do hear it in a lot of classic songs, that rhythm, that jumpy feel, and you hear it in reggae as well when notes are cut off and staccato. So it's a cool technique. So on the C and the F I use that. So on the F, which you can't see so much in the rhythm cam, but you can see in the other one, you can see that I've got the F. It's mainly my third finger because it's long enough. The other one comes down just for a bit of moral support really. The more fingers you can put down, the thicker. So you can see that I'm getting, so I can get a nice staccato sound with both those chords and that technique. So it's just the C and the F, and then on the G, I'm doing the same thing, but because I'm covering a lot of open notes with the chord, it's a little bit awkward to also get that little finger in there. I mean, it can be done. It's a little bit awkward if you're holding it, and if you're holding it so all your fingers are upright, you may find that trying to get the little finger there twists the fingers round and you'll lay flatter. So if that's awkward and you're finding that a little bit too complicated on the G to do, then I actually don't do that anyway. I just mute by pulsing my fingers. You can actually see in the rhythm cam, I'm pushing down, and as I release the pressure, it mutes it. Now this is another really good tech way of getting that chucky mutey feel. If you're on a chord where we talked about it before, if you're using movable shape, you can see I'm pushing, squeezing this down, 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 down. I'm squeezing the notes down to get that rhythm, and this means the rhythm hand can just keep doing a very straight normal rhythm, and then we can add some accents, which is where we play the note making it pop out, and then staccato, which we make it stop, so we can accent that rhythm. And that's what dynamics are. We just kind of make that chord pop in and out. So on the G chord, it'd be a very straight. This is a really good song to learn this technique with as well, is I'm going to hit that G and then I'm just going to relax and I'm going to staccato the G. Now you notice that I'm kind of resting a little bit on this string because I can't really mute that one. Now if you do get it ringing over the top, it's not a big deal. Why is it not a big deal? Because this is the G string and we're playing a G chord. So it has a little bit of an overtone, a little bit of ring. But if you mute it or come down, you notice I'm coming down. This is a little bit trickier to do. I'm coming down on the chord, and as I come down, my thumb's hitting. I exaggerated a bit much there and then got a hit on the body. But yeah, I come down and I'm just kind of resting that string, and that means that I don't get any overtone. You can actually see it there on the rhythm cam. So you can actually see that I'm using like my fingers in a way to create interest in the rhythm. So what we're looking at then is we're looking at the C, the F, the C and the G using that technique. I'll do it really slowly. So I'll start off with the C. Now I'm using the C. Now normally you would do the C with the third finger and then go F there, but I'm using the first finger because I can mute out those strings a little bit better with all my fingers. You could, I guess, do it from behind. It's a bit more awkward. It doesn't make as much sense for I just find it more comfortable doing it that way, but you know, feel free. In fact, I'm getting a fretted overtone here, so that doesn't sound as nice. So anyway, that's the technique. You're in front of the chord because then you can use obviously all the other fingers that are left. So with the F, it'd be the second and the third and the little finger. And it makes no sense if you're going to do see that, to swap the fingers going from behind to in front. So that's me analysing it a little bit much there, figuring out, thinking of questions that you might ask about, well, can you do it from behind? Why are you using the first finger and the third finger? I'm using the first finger because it's easier to mute. That's why I'm doing it. And then the F. And it's basically the same as turning the wrist. Now if you keep the wrist close and do that, you can see it makes it too stiff. You don't want a stiff, I don't really know where I'm going with this. You don't want a stiff arm when you're playing the rhythm. You want it nice and loose and comfortable with the wrist. So if you're trying to manipulate your palm to mute the strings by coming down in a certain way and then keep that nice bouncy rhythm, you're going to end up with it kind of very static and it doesn't feel as comfortable. Really, you want that nice and loose. So it enables me to keep the nice and loose bounce and then mute. Okay, so enough detail there on that rhythm. Hopefully that helps, but definitely a really cool thing to experiment with. So I'll just show you the C, F, C, G with that. So I used my thumb a little bit there on the top. I was thinking, oh, sometimes I use my thumb, don't I? I wasn't analysing it. As I played it, I realised naturally I do that. So if I'm a bit tighter, you see my thumb there ready on the right hand. I'm not going to use my thumb this time. I used a little bit of my palm that time, so you can hear the difference. This time I put the thumb on the G. So as I come down, I kind of catch it a little bit on that sound hole. My nail's a bit long actually there. So you can just play it straight. That's, if you can get the little finger there, great. The wrist. So you see what I'm doing? I don't know if you can actually see it. You might want to go over that and see that again. As I'm playing it, I'm thinking to myself, try all the different methods out just to see what affects it. And it definitely feels looser and more comfortable rhythmically doing it that way for me. But also, it works that way as well. It's just a little bit more work with the right hand, and I feel the rhythm is not as loose, is not as free-flowing, because you're having to do quite a bit more with the right hand than just keep the loose feel. And I think if you feel like normal rhythms, like just playing 1, 2, 3, 4, and you feel a little bit stiff in your arm already, and you feel it very uncomfortable going throughout the song and keeping a nice loose feel, then I feel if you start adding in something with the wrist, it's going to make it even more complicated. So just keep the loose wrist all the time. If you can keep that bounce all the way through, that would be the best thing. And you don't have to put the mutes in. So if you find that really complicated and you're just starting out, keep it simple. Just keep 1, 2, 3. That's fine. But obviously we're in a group, so some of the people that are more advanced will be putting in those mutes, some people won't be putting them in, and the dynamics that the people are adding in will have an effect on the overall piece. If everyone's strumming it and it's all ringy, then it won't have that effect. But it would be really nice if we could all spend a bit of time on it, I guess, and add something to it. So anyway, that's the verses. Right, so we're going to look at the chorus now. So the chorus, Sweet Caroline, I'll give it a little blast so you can see what I'm doing. Here we go then. Sweet Caroline, good times never seem so good. I've been inclined to believe they never would, but now there you go. That's a nice way of playing the rhythm, I feel, is keeping the nice down strums very open, very light, quite loud, so that it's a louder dynamic. We want to play it louder. Sweet Caroline. And the only other thing that I'm adding is little upstrokes here and there. I'm kind of picking and choosing by feel. But if you wanted to put those little upstrokes in, the good place to start is always one before every chord change. So Sweet Caroline. So as I go to the F, I put a down, 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 up, F. G. So just before, if you get used to put it before every chord change, it's easier to remember than it's easier to play by feel. Sweet Caroline, oh, sweet Caroline, good times never seem so good. So it's a little bit easier when you go into a chord to think of a little up before the chord. That would be a good way of practicing it. You don't have to, you can put it wherever you want. If you feel comfortable and you're putting it with a swing rhythm, the important thing is if you're doing upstrokes, they don't want to be straight. Sweet Caroline, good times never seem so good. It makes me want to sing it straighter and not have that feel and that flow and the bounce. So the dynamic should be, if you like, very loud. Open it up and just make sure that swing, if you're going to put upstrokes in there, that you implement it correctly. You put it so that the upstroke is a little bit closer. So when I do, we did the swing lesson a little while ago. So 1 and 2, we're just going to put that second upstroke, that upstroke that we played directly after the down, a little space between it, and put it nearer to the next down. You could do it all the way through. Sweet Caroline, good times never seem so good. If you're singing and playing, you kind of will probably find your own way of playing it, as long as it sounds right. And you may need to kind of practice getting those two things to mar up. And if you're singing and I think with this song especially, if you're singing, the rhythms of the words are out of sync with some of the chords, it's especially easier just keep a nice straight down strum. You can keep the straight down strum, it's just the up strums have got to be in the right place, otherwise it just messes with the feel. I hope that makes sense. So you've got the last bit there, we've got G, F, E minor, D minor. You could do that G, F, and you could do E minor up here, but you've got to be careful because we don't want to hear the first string. It doesn't sound quite right. It doesn't give us the full E minor chord. The full E minor chord need that extra finger, which is a bit tricky. So I would stick with the normal E minor so you get the full chord, but feel free to add that in. I think we did it in Stand By Me. No, not Stand By Me. Let It Be. Let It Be. It was the Beatles song. So yeah, so you go G, F, E minor, D minor. You could do it this way. G, F, E minor up here, D minor. In some ways it makes it easier shifting up, so it's a cool thing. You can use that whatever you feel comfortable with, as long as it sounds good, is cool with me. So Sweet Caroline, even, that's a cool song as well. Sweet Caroline is going to start that first bit just very big, Sweet Caroline. Now what you could do, if you feel like putting an upstroke or some interest, but you find it difficult to put a lot of upstrokes in, because I just kind of put them as and where I feel, is you could put an upstroke just before every change. Sweet Caroline. So as I go to the F, so Sweet Caroline. That's better. Good times never seem so good. So put that upstroke in before the good. Just straight F and G. I've been inclined. There's the upstroke. To believe they never would know. And then you just play your normal changes that we did before. Okay, so for the main part, that first bit, you can just keep it downstrokes, just make it loud and big, or put one upstroke in at the end before every change. Or if you're really fancy pantsy, as long as you've got the swing rhythm feel, you can put those upstrokes wherever you feel and it will sound cracking. And then the last part, the little breakdown, G, F, E minor, D minor, two ways of doing it, but pick what's best for you. So after that, we're back into the verse, which is the same as the first verse, and then we're back into the chorus, the same as what we've just done. And then we've got that little intro riff that we play again as a lead break before the ending, and the ending is just the same as the chorus, and the only difference is we're going to end on a C. So yeah, big thanks to Keith for the chart, because he did the chart for me and it's a cracking chart, so he's our chart master, so thanks to Keith for the chart. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoy the tutorial. And there's obviously, I know there's some elements of what we do in the video that is probably tricky for some people, and other people get it absolutely fine. Just work on one element. If you're finding it a bit tricky, work on one element that you know is quite cool, that you like, oh, I'd like to be able to do that. Work on that part, practice it, and then you better put it in your playing in other places, in other songs. But generally, when you're playing songs, something to think about is dynamics, and even it's something as simple as playing softer and louder, which anyone can do. You just hit it softer, you know, don't have your arms so big when you're doing those strums, a bit closer. When you're doing the verses, making those verses quieter and bigger in the chorus makes the chorus stand out more. If we're all bashing it out really loud to start with, we've got nowhere to go. You could go even louder and up to 11 if you wanted to, but if you're Spinal Tap, but we're trying to avoid that. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed that, and I will speak to you. I'll speak to you in our next session. See you soon, guys.